Hi Daisies, I'm a third year cadet and I'm going to show you how to create the board game from your board game badge. Before you begin any project, you have to first come up with a theme. Creating a theme is the first step of brainstorming. If you're not sure what kind of board game you want to create, make a list of all your possible options and choose your favorite. For example, I love animals, but I also really like geography, so I chose the geography of animals. Once you have your theme, you can start the drafting stage. During the stage, I asked myself, what are the characters in this game? How do they move around the board? What does the board look like? For the game board, I wanted it to be bright and cheery, but I also wanted to touch on elements of geography. I decided to use a world map, brightly colored path, and 4 cardinal directions: north, east, south, and west. I chose to place them in corners because it made reference to an old sailing legend. In the legend, it says the 4 directions are the 4 corners of the earth, and if you sailed too far, you fell off the earth. After I completed my draft of my board, I focused on the rules of my game and how it worked. I love animals, so I chose 1 animal from each of the 7 continents as my challenge. For the characters, I chose female scientist that represented the levels of Girl Scouting. Dorothy Hodkins represents daisies. Barbara Atkins represents brownies. Jane Goodall represents juniors. Cleopatra the Alchemist represents cadets. Sally Ride represents the seniors. Ada Lovelace represents the ambassadors. And Laura Bessie represents our leaders and adults. To create my board, I used paint, cardstock, and poster board. To protect it from wear and tear, I used laminating paper and Mod Podge. To create my players, I used Model Magic clay because it doesn't break down like traditional clay. I also used acrylic paint to create the colors. I used cardstock to make my cards. To create my animal puzzle pieces, I used a pre-pressed blank puzzle piece. And then I used printouts of my animals, and then I glued them to my puzzle pieces. I got an adult to help me cut them out so that each one are puzzle pieces. To fulfill the engineering part of the badge, I also created a spinner. To create the spinner, I used modeling clay to create the base. And then to create the moving mechanism, I used a series of a nut, a washer, a bolt, another bolt, and a washer. That way, the spinner moves. The cardboard on the bottom is used to keep the spinner flat. This nut is raised off of the base of the board. So to keep it from wobbling around while you're playing, I created a cardboard base that covers it. How to play. The object of the game. Be the first player to return to the corner of origin with all of your animal pieces. To start, you should choose a player and an animal. The animal you choose will determine which corner you start in. For the north, the animals representing North America and Europe will start in that corner. For the east, Asia and Australia. For the south, South America and Antarctica. And the west is Africa. Once in a corner, the player with the closest birthday goes first. Choose a direction card. And spin the spinner. Advance the number of squares stated by the spinner and the direction stated on the card. Use the compass if you need help. If you can advance in the direction given because there is no path, lose your turn. If you cannot advance because there is another player on the square, send that player, or your opponent, back to their corner of origin. your animal pieces. Each animal has its own puzzle. You must complete the puzzle to win the game. To collect an animal piece, you must land on the square labeled Collect Animal Puzzle Piece. Or draw a card that tells you to do so. For your cards, to draw an action card, you must land on a red square. The action card says, collect an animal puzzle piece. Follow the instructions for the animal puzzle pieces. If your card says move to the nearest corner of the earth, move to the corners marked with a letter, N, E, S, or W. If your card says switch places with an opponent, you may change places with any player on the board. To win, you must circumnavigate the board at least one time. You must have collected and assembled your animal puzzle and return to your corner of origin. In order to return to your corner of origin, you must have the exact number of spaces to land on the square. Otherwise, you will have to circumnavigate the board again. The first player to fulfill all of the above requirements wins the game. Have fun and good luck.